over the weekend, headed to Eugene, Oregon. Ashley Hodge, he's one of our basketball experts. He's one of the partners, but also keeps very much in touch with men's basketball. He joins us on SicEm365 Radio. Ashley, we just had an opportunity to talk to Jared. That decision final. In the end, Butler, Mitchell, Teague, and also Vital. Before we break down the upcoming roster, your thoughts about what those four accomplished?
Historic. Couldn't have been four higher character guys. Just, the way they play, the competitiveness. I think if there's one word to describe all four of those guys, just ultimate competitors. Those guys just really brought it every day, and you got no off nights except for the opponents playing against Davio Mitchell, obviously. But just love everything that those four represented, for Baylor, and just the efficiency, the competitiveness, and just ultimately, what were they, 52-6 or something along those lines? Just incredible production those last 2 years for all four of those guys.
Well, and you'd like to say clutch, but actually, if you really look back over the last 2 years, they didn't ever really need to be. I think that's even more important, that they were when they had to be, but very rarely did they ever have to come through in the clutch. They were usually well ahead by clutch time.
Yeah, it's a great point. You think back to Jared Butler's freshman season, and there were a lot of times where he, made key buckets down the stretch to win Baylor games, but he just didn't have that opportunity very much, the last 2 years. And I just did the math in my head. It was actually 54-6. But you're right. Most of those games were blowouts. There were some close games more so last year than this past year, but very few 1 possession, 2 possession games down the stretch, because they just had commanding leads at the 4-minute mark. And that's just a tribute to how great these guys were and how great those teams were.
Ashley, I know it's just the decision that was made today, but we kind of know this could be coming. Where do you rank some of these guys, Davion and Jared in particular? Vital, though, too, as far as all-time Baylor greats, those who have passed the Tweety Carters and so many others. Where do you kind of place these guys in your mind?
They're up there. This is not to rag on Grayson or other people that rank these guys, but I hate ranking basketball players and football players as to who's better than one another, because it's such a team game. Baseball is a little different. I think baseball is more of an individual game, and you can look at stats, you can look at production, and you can rank the all-time greats. But, for every Jared Butler, you got to have a Flo Thamba and Jonathan Chamo-Chachua setting those screens and making things easy for the guards. And for every great quarterback, you have to have a great offensive line. So I'll just say, Vital, his contributions are not unnoticed. Maceo Teague, he's a guy that had to take a little bit of a back seat as to handling the ball and being the focus. But every time you needed a clutch basket, he was there, and his endurance at the end of games was incredible. Mm-hmm. So I put all four of them kind of in the same category, and they're at the upper echelon of, top 20 players in Baylor basketball history in my mind.
All right, so let's discuss now who they are moving forward. They have the incoming freshmen that they locked in a long time ago. Yes. Langston Love, obviously Kendall Brown, and then Jeremy Sohan, and they're now here. Then they have the Akinjo, I went with young man from Fairmont State.
Dale Bonner.
Bonner. We've interviewed all these guys. We've gotten to know them almost before they've ever stepped on campus, and what they have coming back. Yes, there's the Matthew Meyer decision. But your thoughts about who they have. Is this still an opportunity for a team, if things can mesh, to compete for a national title?
I think so. I think they're more athletic than even this past year's team. And I know that's crazy to say that. This team was very athletic and just won a national championship. They don't have the experience, they don't have the savvy, and perhaps not the competitiveness. And those are huge things. And it may result in a final result that's not as thrilling and doesn't reach the echelon that this last team reached. But from athleticism, this team's incredible. Kendall Brown, athleticism through the roof. Jonathan Chamo-Chachua, another year of him in the weight room working on his game. That's scary. Jared Nunes said on a podcast I did with with him recently. He was making 75% of his open threes right now. So if he adds that to his arsenal, that's a big thing for him. I talked to Jake Lindsay in Indianapolis, and he told me, he said, man, Flo Thamba and Jonathan just need reps. He goes, they didn't get those summer reps with the guards and just repetition. He says, summer of getting that, he goes, those guys are going to take big leaps. And how can you bet against Scott Drew teams as far as the development of big men? So I think it's a pretty exciting team on paper from an athleticism standpoint. I'm assuming that Matthew Meyer returns. James Akinjo, that joker's quick. I mean, he reminds me a lot of Curtis Gerald. He's a competitive guy, all Pac-12 first team. He's going to bring a lot to the table. I think Adam Flagler is going to be an all-conference player. I think Jonathan is going to take a huge jump, and then these freshmen are really, really good. I mean, this is the three best freshmen that we've ever signed as a group, and I think they're going to really contribute a lot to the team.
Ashley, I want to talk about Flo Thamba for a second. Mark Vidal told us last week that, and of course he had his best game of his career was in the national championship game, and that he leaned in and actually said words, let's kick their ass in the huddle before Gonzaga, which nobody had ever heard him speak before at that time. He did have his best game in the national championship game. How do you expect to see his game grow? I mean, not so much change because you are what you are, especially when you're as tall as he is, but how do you expect to see his game adapt to the new roster?
I mean, he showed me some things this year I didn't think he had. I thought he would be a great pick setter, offensive rebounder, shot blocker, rebounder, but he has a pretty nice touch on his shot. His free throw shooting really improved as the season went along. And the thing that he did a great job of is moving his feet on ball screens. In today's college basketball, NBA, you have to be able to switch ball screens and guards. And I thought he and Jonathan both did a great job of that. So I think he's an extremely valuable player. There was a clip on Twitter of Thamba that was like a minute of him just sealing guys that allowed Davio Mitchell and Jared Butler and Maceo Teague to get open layups at the rim, and just being able to hold like a post position to where it frees up open lanes for the guards. There's so many little things like that just probably go unnoticed by the average fan, but I think, he's going to he just needs to finish around the rim better. He needs to keep his balance, and he needs to do a better job, I think, of blocking and affecting shots and be a 2 blocks per game guy. And I think he definitely has that in his potential to really grow in those areas this year.
Transfers were a part of the reason why this Baylor roster was able to kind of age, gracefully, because guys were having to sit out. So a lot of depth was built up. I know, Ashley, that it appears they're going to have depth, but are they going to be able to still kind of, have guys to the side, hold them back, so to say, redshirt, if you will, the same way they were able to maybe the last couple of years?
Well, I think that's the plan with Dale Bonner. Dale, he has that expectation. He's stepping up a level. So I would love to see his development kind of track what Adam Flagler's development, tracked as he sat out a year. Davio Mitchell, Maceo Teague, obviously, as well. I think that he's going to be a guy that's going to be kind of that redshirt guy, but he can play. Now, he's eligible to play. He's got 3 years of eligibility, and I think he's going to be that 5th guard this year. The other guy to take kind of keep an eye on, the two bigs, I think, Zach Loveday and Dane Danger both have their redshirt year still available to them because, last year was a free year with COVID. And Dane Danger broke his foot in the spring. So he could be a guy that, because of breaking his foot, maybe needs some time to recover, maybe potentially, 1 more year sitting out. Although, he's not a guy that I think will stay all 5 years. He's too talented. I think he's going to be a pro prospect before that then. So you might as well play him if he's available. But Zach Loveday would be another guy to continue to gain strength. And I really think both those guys are going to be great as upperclassmen, but they're probably, guys that are more like those redshirt candidate types that they could just use another year of development.
So you mentioned Dane Danger. What is his status? Did I read something that you were mentioning, something he's having to overcome, an injury or rehab or recovery? Is everything good with him?
Yeah, broken foot. He broke his foot, I think, in practice. And I don't know the timetable for when he returns, but I'm assuming just like any injury, just not being able to practice with the team this summer and miss a lot of summer development, I think is going to set him back a little bit. But he's, 7'7" wingspan, incredible hands, incredible footwork, really a great pick setter. Everything I've heard about his work ethic has been great. So I think he's a guy that Baylor fans are going to be really excited about in the future.
Do you expect all three of the recruits to play?
I do. I think that in my mind, I think that your top three guys are going to be, from a scoring perspective, are going to be Matthew Meyer, James Akinjo, and Adam Flagler. I think Jonathan Chachua is a real potential all Big 12, maybe even all American player, and maybe a double-double guy. So there's your fourth scorer. I think Flo's going to, see big improvement. I expect LJ Cryer to play a big role. And then after that, obviously Kendall Brown's a 5-star. I know Jeremy Sohan, his skill level's through the roof. And Langston Love, I think, is going to be heavily in the rotation at guard. So if one of those guys can produce at a high level, then you've got something pretty special. But I do think all three of them are going to play.
All right. So do we have time to kind of go over the who does what, where, and when?
Sure.
As far as so LJ Cryer.
Yep. Well, LJ is the guy that can score the basketball easily. And, I think even against Davio Mitchell every day and Jared Butler, I was texting with his dad this past week, and his dad said, he got better. He got better. He got stronger. This was really good for him to go against those guys and practice every day. And, I expect, the games may be easier for him than what he's used to, going against Davio Mitchell every day. So I think that, he's going to be a guy that's going to be ready to play a big role. You never know, because until a guy does it at this level, you just can't say for sure that he can do it. But he shows a lot of good signs. The quickness is there, the ball handling. I think he's a good passer. We obviously saw glimpses of how good that jump shot is. And when guys get in at the end of games and only get a minute, sometimes it's just really hard to judge, their talent level. But all the feedback I get on him is really positive from practice. So that's the first one. Who else?
Okay, so let's just go position. I won't say the name. You can tell. Okay, point guard. You mentioned LJ Cryer. Give me that depth chart, knowing that some might play two guard or whatever as well.
Yeah, well, I think James Akinjo is going to be the guy that's on the ball the most. He averaged 5.5 assists for Arizona, 16 points. He's a good 3-point shooter, 41%, good foul shooter, gets to the line a lot. Shot more free throws than any Baylor player last year. So he's a guy that you're going to see at the foul line quite a bit, and he shoots it well when he gets there. And then, I think he's an excellent, just has a great feel for the game. Really competitive kid. He's from Oakland. He's got a lot of dog in him and in a good way. And I expect him to be an all conference caliber player. So I think he'll be on the ball a lot. I think Adam Flagler will take obviously a huge role as that scorer, kind of the Jared Butler role. And we know what a great shooter he is. He's also got a good floater game, mid-range. He can drive it. He handles the ball really well. Great free throw shooter. So I expect him to be a double-figure scorer. And then after that, I think you got LJ Cryer and Langston Love as the two guards that will get a lot of time with Dale Bonner, being the fifth guard. That's how I would project things. Something that's interesting to note, I watched LJ Cryer and Langston Love quite a bit in the summer of 2019 when they were both on the Houston Hoops team playing AAU basketball. And they made a Final Four run to the Peach Jam, which is the highest level at the Nike EYBL. And both are outstanding players. LJ was coming back from an injury, so he wasn't 100%. But Langston Love was the leading scorer on that team. He averaged over 21 points a game. Very efficient, was able to drive smaller players to the hoop and get baskets in the paint. Good 3-point shooter. I think, we're going to be really excited about him. I think he told you on your radio show that he had a 6'8" wingspan. He's about 6'4". So he's a guy that's going to bring a lot to the table. But those are the guards. And then on the wings, obviously Matthew Meyer is expected to be the star player if he comes back to Baylor. And then Kendall Brown, huge upside. Jeremy Sohan, another guy that's kind of in that mold of versatile wing that can switch 1 through 5, can guard point guards, can guard bigs, just an incredible skill set. And, just has a great feel for the game, high basketball IQ. And then Jordan Turner, we don't know really what to expect from Jordan because we haven't seen much of him in game situations. But he's improving. He's got a 7-foot wingspan. He can shoot threes. He's a good offensive rebounder. So it'd be kind of interesting to see, if this is a year that he has kind of a breakout year and maybe becomes that second wing, alongside Meyer. You always think the freshmen are going to, bring a lot more to the table than sometimes they do. And, just remains to be seen, how they can adjust to this level. So we'll see. And then in the post, Thamba and Chamba Chachua are the two guys that I think are going to gobble up the most minutes. And then behind them, you've got Zach Loveday and Dane Danger. So I think we're pretty, it's a very complete team. You've got, great guards, you've got great wings, and you've got two really good post players who are still improving a lot. And I think are going to take big leaps this summer at Thamba and Chamba Chachua.
It looks as if the cupboard is not bare. Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate that. Appreciate your time. Ashley Hodge, one of the great partners of SicEm365.com.